And time for one more interview. Now, today is World Anti-Counterfeit Day, and a recent report has showed that the selling of counterfeit fashion, especially on social media, is rapidly growing annually. Now, the report also stated that nearly 20%, that's 20% of posts about fashion products on Instagram feature counterfeit products. And joining us now is Paul Ramara from Spoor & Fisher, intellectual property and copyright expert, and he's going to talk to us about this. Paul, thanks so much for coming through.
It's a pleasure.
So there's no doubt that the likes of Instagram, the likes of Facebook, those particular platforms do assist people, especially those who are running small businesses, to actually market and sell more of their products than they ordinarily would. But of course, the problem is these counterfeit goods. But how does one know, what you are exactly dealing with on these platforms?
Yes, so as you said, the explosion of the e-commerce has posed serious challenges. If you look at it globally, the value of counterfeit goods that are being sold is worth over 1.2 trillion US dollars. So it's very big. So yes, when it comes to online, it is a bit challenging because counterfeiters can hide their identity. Often they use photographs from the genuine sellers of goods to try and deceive the consumer.
So how do you deal with that, as you rightly point out, to the relative obscurity of, the sellers on these social media platforms? How then do you deal with the intellectual property rights of the intellectual holders?
Yes, so we do regular online monitoring of these platforms. We identify the counterfeit goods on this platform, and if we do identify counterfeit goods, we do what we call takedowns of this particular accounts.
How effective are you, though, if the report states that there's an increase in the selling of these counterfeit goods on social media platforms?
Well, we are very, very effective. Look, in South Africa, we still have brick and mortar kind of sellers of counterfeit goods. It's not a lot on online, but it is growing, and I am doing monitoring for some of my clients, and it's quite effective. So other than just doing takedown, we do monitor the trends on this website. If we find that there is a particular seller of these goods who runs multiple accounts across social media networks, we would then conduct investigations, make contact with this seller with a view to determining his exact location, and then lay a complaint with the South African Police Service with a view to conducting a search and seizure operation.
Again, the efficacy of this particular process, because you are monitoring on behalf of whoever your client is. Yeah. So does this mean that every person who owns some intellectual property who has those rights has to hire someone to police this on their behalf?
Well, fortunately it's online, and brand holders themselves can also do this online monitoring themselves. Other than that, brand holders, what they can do is to set up an online watch service. They can also actually set up an online service in such a way that they can actually sensitize consumers about counterfeit goods that are sold online, what to look out for. So education is quite key when it comes to, this type of thing.
And with regard to the criminal justice system and just how seriously this is taken, as you say, you will go, you will monitor, you will establish contact, you will establish where the person is, and then you hand it over to law enforcement authorities. What's the success rate and the follow-through on these charges?
We have had quite a lot of success. The only disappointing thing is when it comes to actually meting out the sentences or jail sentences to these counterfeiters, because dealing in counterfeit goods is actually a criminal offense. So for a first-time offender, for instance, you can get 5,000 penalty for each item of good that is involved in counterfeiting, or a 3 years imprisonment, or a combination.
But does it actually happen, Paul? Because you see the proliferation of these counterfeit goods on social media platforms. So are there any examples where people have been meted out with those type of sanctions?
It does not happen a lot, and the reason for that is the way in which counterfeiting is perceived as a soft crime. So we still have a lot of work to do with the judiciary. We need to sensitize them about the need to fight counterfeiting a lot more seriously than it is actually being done at the moment. It's very important because there are often public health and safety issues associated with counterfeit goods.
So what future trends do you foresee in this space with regard to, the selling of counterfeit goods? How do you see this playing out short to medium term?
Well, I think there needs to be greater collaboration between the public and the private sector, public service and the private sector. We also need to, work hand in hand with the consumers, because essentially it's also a supply and demand issue. If people are sensitized about the need to fight counterfeiting because of its implication on jobs, on the economy, we think we can go a long way.
How do you do that? Because people are generally aspirational. So people want to wear the Louis Vuittons. They want to wear, whatever other brand there is. And I think there are so many counterfeit Louis Vuitton bags around. It's scary. But how do you get through to the consumer then that they should not be participating in this? And is there any sanction that could accrue to those who buy?
Well, I think education is firstly important. If consumers are aware that Interpol has identified counterfeiting as one of their top 5 priority crime, if people are aware that counterfeiting revenues are used to fund terrorist activities, if people are aware that it also can lead to job losses, I think people will be a lot more sensitized. In addition to that, often what you buying and thinking that it's a Gucci would often last you for 2 months. So why not buy something that gonna last you long?
Because you can't afford the Gucci. Well, the simple,
options,
the short answer to that.
Well, there's other options as well, I think, that you can buy. There's other bags you can buy.
I suppose that is correct. Well, that's where we're going to have to leave that one for today. And thank you so much to Paul Ramara from Spoor & Fisher talking to us about the alarming rate at which online selling of counterfeit fashion products is growing in this country. And today, of course, is World Anti-Counterfeit Day. Try not to buy any counterfeit goods today. And with that said, it's goodbye.